So you've likely experienced a pair of headphones that you have to get the wire in just the right position to get sound in one or both of your ears. And this is this is due to a disconnection the wires of your plug, or the wire itself, I guess. But in my particular case, it's a disconnection in two of the wires from my plug. And I have a nice pair of Sennheiser 439 headphones. And it cost me about $60, I think, to get a replacement on Amazon. So instead of doing that, I spent $20 on a soldering iron, a handy dandy little holder here, some solder, and I watched a couple YouTube videos, DIY trying, and life hacker Eric Ravenshaft with a nice English accent did a really nice video, and we're gonna get started on this. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut off this section of wire that I have here now and kind of get a fresh start. I'm just gonna use some scissors, and then if you have wire strippers, you would want to strip some wire off and expose the wires. I don't have those, so I'm gonna use my teeth, but I'm not gonna put that on film. So my teeth stripping was successful, and I've got a blue, a red, and a gold wire, and I guess some insulation in there. I'm going to cut the insulation out because it's kind of in the way. I'm of the understanding that part of this coloration is a coating to prevent the wires from shorting, but in doing that, it also will prevent the wires from taking up the solder. So you want to melt it off, and you can either use the soldering iron itself or a lighter, and I'm going to go for a lighter because that sounds like more fun. So the lighter really quickly got rid of the coloration that was on there, but it also, and you can see where the wire is exposed, but you can also see how the tips are a little blackened. Seems a little less than ideal with the blackened tips. To make myself feel a little better, I'm going to clean them off with a little alcohol wipe, just so I feel better about the contact it's going to have with the solder. We got some good shine to them now. So I'm gonna start putting things on my little third hand holder. So you may have already noticed that there's some really crummy soldering already here. That's because I've done this repair once before. A lot of the plugs will have two flanges that come up on the side here that you can use to clamp down on the wire to hold it in place, but this one clearly doesn't. So really all I had holding it in place were the small solders and the wires, and then wrap some electrical tape around it. Obviously that wasn't enough to take it, so we're going to try something a little differently this time. In addition to soldering it in place, I think I'm also going to put some silicone in this area to help glue things together, and silicone's non-conductive, so I think that'll be a pretty neat little fix. This is my second time soldering in my life, but what I learned the first time was, so the solder melts at 460 degrees Fahrenheit. So your soldering iron is at least 460 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is insulative. The metal is not. The metal is hot, you know. I originally had a desire. It's kind of like tough to hold something out here and kind of get your precise measurements. And so for a moment, I wanted to do a little pencil effect. Don't do that, you know. They're auditory, they're visual, they're maybe intuitive learners, but every once in a while, it just seems you have to be a sensory learner, and I wouldn't recommend that for you. Okay, so my new soldering iron has been smoking for a while now, but the back of the packaging said that it can smoke up to 3 minutes, and we're cool. What I'm going to do here in a second is I'm just going to touch the solder here, and then I'll melt quickly, and I'll remove this wire, and then we'll get to general soldering. And I'm not an expert on this, but I'm nowhere near an expert on this. And what I understand to be the principle is, so first, the root word of solder means to join together, right? To make solid, okay? So we're gonna try and make this solid. And then what's unique about soldering is you're not melting the working piece. So we're not doing anything to melt this headphone plug, we're just melting the solder. So my understanding of what's happening is the metal feels smooth to touch, is full of lots of little crevices. And my understanding is that what solder does is it fills these crevices and kind of does a mechanical hold and holds things together. And so one of the key concepts is that you want to heat up the metal, and in doing that, it's heated up to a depth to where the solder can flow into a greater depth of these crevices and get a better mechanical hold and also hopefully some better conductivity. So that's the approach we're going to go with. So I just touched the soldering iron to this section of solder here where this wire was bound and immediately let go. So that's pretty neat. Now I'm gonna look into getting these things kind of poked through their little holes so we get a little mechanical bind first before we try soldering things. And I guess because I pointed at this one first, we'll start with this one and see how that goes. It's saying we'll start with that one. It's important to note that this is your ground piece, and then these two pieces have channels for like your right and left channel, and they're color coded. So we have a blue, a red, and a gold wire, but I guess frequently there's a green, a red, and a gold wire, and you want to line them up accordingly. I put the soldering iron on the wires and applied a little solder to the tips of each of the wires. Process I believe is called tinning, and it'll hold the wires together and also make them have a little better, not only conduction between the fibers themselves at that point, but also make them more easily connect to the solder at the plug. Now you can see the blue wire is threaded through that hole, so we're just gonna solder it in place. So it looks like our blue/green/left channel went well, so let's move on to the right, red. Whew! We got them on there. I think the alligator clip stand thing helps a little bit, but there is still so much room for improvement in this process. Let's have a listen and see if they work. Check it out. Let's turn it up a little bit, just so you know what's happening. We got left and right, so that's successful. Okay, so now of utmost importance, when removing this, grab the metal piece, not the cord, or you'd undo everything you had done. All right, and one thing I did a disservice by forgetting to mention to you earlier is before you solder anything on, it's important that you put your barrel and spring-like thing on in the right order and orientation. Because I was reusing what I have, that wasn't a big deal for me, but if you're replacing the factory one with this, that could definitely cause you some problems. You just have to redo everything you did. So like I said before, there are those of these that have a clamp that will enable you to clamp onto your wire to hold things firm and secure. This doesn't have that. And as I said before, I used electrical tape last time to hold things in place, and it didn't really work out for me. So this time I'm just going to glue it with silicone, and I think that's going to work out a lot better. So we're going to move on to that. So I'll level with you. Electricity is nowhere near my jam. But I imagine that part of the point of the tape, or in my case, the silicone glue, is to keep our wire contacts from contacting this shell. Whether that's the case or not, I think it's good if I prevent that from happening just to be safe. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little film of silicone on the plug pieces itself, and then I think I'm going to goober a good bit inside there and just kind of wipe up the excess as needed. I want the silicone to get a good hold on not only the wires but also the big wire itself. And I think before putting silicone on, I'm going to wipe it down with a little alcohol. And one kind of little fun thing that I have is, in building my first aid kit, I got some little disinfecting wipes. So I have like 300 of these little alcohol swabs, and they kind of come in handy in things like this. So I'm going to use one of those. Alright, so she's all back together again. The silicone was really tacky and really messy to work with. I still think it's going to work well with my purpose. It's really a flexible thing, and being non-conductive, I think it'll work well with this. I goobered as much in there as I thought was reasonable. And then I found that using these alcohol wipes, it was really easy to wipe off the excess and clean things up nicely. So I'm just going to let that dry. So it's been a few days now with functional headphones, and it's been nice. The repair is holding strong and working well. I did have one complication in that after I thought I was finished and let my silicone dry overnight, I plugged the headphones in. I only had sound in one headphone. I then was able to remove the barrel because the silicone actually didn't dry overnight. And as before, I had sound in two headphones when the barrel was off, and I just had the plug in. So what I did was I just wrapped some electrical tape around the silicone I had, and then I put some more silicone around that, and then I went back to having sound in both headphones. So I imagine that the prongs were making contact with the barrel, and that was causing some sort of short. I did the wet silicone and dry silicone with a multimeter to see if they were conductive, and neither were conductive. I also called GE to ask if their silicone was conductive, and they said it wasn't conductive. So I guess that in installing it, I just failed to really put a film everywhere and didn't quite goober enough in there as planned. But regardless, putting a strip of electrical tape around it and putting some more silicone in there fixed my problems, and things are holding fast, and I've now got a pair of functioning headphones. Pretty great. I hope you have a great day. Bye.